Ciao ragazzi, this is Talk Calcio TV. Welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about all the Serie A fixtures over the weekend and all the major talking points. Well, it's fair to say round 22 of the Serie A season created many talking points this weekend. It did end, of course, with Napoli. They still top Serie A in the Scudetto race. They are just cleared by Juventus by 1 point. They were 3-1 winners at home at the Stadio San Paolo on Sunday, having defeated Bologna 3-1. Now, a lot of talk of this game was dominated by Simone Verdi. Of course, we know he was due a move from the Rossoblu Bologna to Napoli. Of course, he pulled out at the 11th hour saying the move didn't feel right. Before the game also, Napoli captain Marek Hamsik also said he didn't need to comment on Verdi. I'm sure the crowd at the San Paolo would do the talking. It's fair to say that crowd, we all know they're noisy, hostile, as they were to Verdi. But it was actually the Rossoblu that took the lead after just 24 seconds. It was a goal by Rodrigo Palacio. He gave Bologna the lead. But Napoli hit back in style to win 3-1. Of course, Mertens scoring twice. So they still lead Serie A as it stands 1 point over Juventus. Of course, later on in the game, Simone Verdi pulled up with a fight train. It's fair to say that they didn't get much sympathy from the crowd at the Stadio San Paolo. So in second place, of course, is the Bianconeri Juventus, the reigning champions. They were 2-0 winners against Chievo away at the weekend. It's fair to say a game marred by controversy, as always, as we always see with Juventus and they're involved. As we saw in this one, of course, Chievo had 2 players sent off during this game. It was goals from Sami Khedira and Gonzalo Higuain that won the game for the Bianconeri. Of course, Juventus were without Juan Cuadrado, Paulo Dybala, Claudio Marchisio and Benedict Howardez. Gianluigi Buffon, of course, turned 40 the following day. Nice gesture from the Chievo home fans. He had cards in the dugout wishing him a happy 40th birthday. What a fine gesture for such a fine man, of course, possibly and arguably the best Italian goalkeeper of all time, as we know. Some will debate whether it was him or Dino Zoff. So Juventus, they won the game away to keep on the pressure on Napoli. Now, the controversy started when Chievo got reduced to 10 men. As we know, it was Samuel Bastian. He was booked for jumping on Asamoah, and then just seconds later, he was seen pulling the defender by the neck, by his shirt, of course. So he then saw red for that one. Now, what caused more of the controversy, though, later on in the game, was, of course, Fabrizio Cacciatori, rather, I should say. Of course, a decision wasn't given his way. He made a comment to the ref. When the ref told him to leave the field, he made the handcuff gesture. He was straight away sent off for that remark. Now, by all means book him. I know players aren't meant to make offensive gestures, but, he only done a handcuff gesture. He didn't do anything racist, anti-Semitic or anything. Now, all I'm saying is if a Juventus player had done that, they would be up in arms. Would they have been sent off? Of course, as it's Chievo, there's always the story about big club, small club, in any division or any country in football. It was this case with Chievo. So they went down to 9 men. Of course, Gonzalo Higuain, after Sami Khedira gave them the lead on 67 minutes. Gonzalo Higuain, he will have won the match in the 88th minute. So Juventus, they are in second. They keep on the pressure on Napoli. Now, one shock result from the weekend was Fiorentina 1, Verona 4 at the Artemio Franchi. Now, neither side approached this game in great form. Fiorentina, of course, was swept aside by Sampdoria 3-1 the previous week. Verona, of course, with relegation threatened. La Viola fans will put the result down to bad luck and some dismal defending. But if Verona, if they got any slight chances of staying in Serie A, this was the result for them. Of course, winning 4-1 away against La Viola. Goals on this one, of course, there was 2 from Keane. Vukovic also on the score sheet, as well as Ferrari. It's fair to say they were revved up for the challenge. So a disappointing defeat for Viola there. Then, of course, we had Genoa against Udinese. Former, of course, those in England remember, Valon Behrami, the Swiss international. Of course, at West Ham and most recently Watford. He was on the score sheet for Massimo Otto's men Udinese as they won at the Luigi Ferrari Stadium 1-0. Now, this was the first time Udinese had ever won at the Luigi Ferrari Stadium, or the Marassi as it's now called nowadays, since 1983. Of course, there was a famous 4-2 win in January 2011, along with 4 draws and 10 defeats. So that was a great win. Massimo Otto's men back in winning form. Now, of course, we had a controversial game on Saturday, AC Milan against Lazio. It was a 2-1 win for the Rossoneri against the Biancoceleste at the San Siro. A game dominated by the VAR bad refereeing decisions, to put it politely. Now, I could understand Simone Inzaghi's frustration, and anyone connected with Lazio, I could understand why they'd be so annoyed. Milan took the lead, of course. A goal from Sutroni. Now, I gotta say, having watched it live, I could see the handball. It then went to the VAR, and the goal was still given. Now, I'll sympathise with officials to some degree. Obviously, you don't know what angles the VAR shows it at. When there's bodies in the way as well, they can't see the hand movement. But it was a clear handball. Rino Gattuso, the Rossoneri coach, even said afterwards the goal shouldn't have stood. Lazio did get themselves back into the game with the goal from Marasic. Then, of course, Bonaventura scoring just before half-time. 2-1 that it finished. A great win for the Rossoneri. You just think, is Rino Gattuso getting it together? Can they build momentum? Or is this just another false dawn, as they've had many this season? Milan's bright start, as we know, paid off on that one. Going back to the VAR, replays from the angle behind the goal. Suspect that Crotone turned it in with his arm. I could see that. I think anyone who's watching around the world could have seen it. What view do the officials get? And FCB, couldn't the linesman not see it? The goal was given. It was more controversy. A defeat for the Biancoceleste, but it's fair to say other results went their way. And that leads us on to our next result, which of course was Inter against Spal. Now of course Inter thought they had their first win in 2 months. Luciano Spalletti, man, as we know, they haven't won now. I think is it 7 or 9 games. They took the lead in this one, thanks to a Spal own goal. Vicari was on the score sheet, and then 91 minutes on the 91st minute, Palosci equalising for Spal. And once again, of course, critics came out for the Nerazzurri, their coach Spalletti. With the goals, the likes of Icardi, Perisic in their team, you think scoring goals wouldn't be an issue. They just seem to have that struggle, as most Spalletti teams do, seeing the games through sometimes. When you're on a bad run, they don't seem to overcome it that easy. It's fair to say the Nerazzurri Lazio having lost the night before, Inter Milan only gaining 1 point on them doesn't really help them. It's definitely a missed opportunity there for the Nerazzurri. So they draw yet again. When will they get their win is the main talking point. Sassuolo losing 3-0 at home to Atalanta. Atalanta confirmed their familiarity with the MyPay Stadium. They're home away from home, given they're such a good record they have there. They were 3-0 winners. Goal from Masiello, Cristante and Fraiola for Atalanta. Now, of course, they rested key players. As we speak, they're playing Juventus tonight in the Coppa Italia. They rested key players. It mattered little at all to them, though, from the team from Bergamo. Deep into stoppage, of course, Eduardo Gondiga received his second yellow card, which was a sending off for Sassuolo. It ended a nightmare day. Atalanta, of course, in the Europa League, going well in Serie A. They had a couple of bad results. I think it's fair to say they've overcome that blip. Europa League, possibly further, is definitely still on for them. Then, of course, we had the main game on Sunday night, which was Roma against Sampdoria. Now, the two teams only met at the Luigi Ferrari Stadium on the Wednesday night. Of course, that ended in a 1-1 draw, a penalty from Quagliarella before Edin Dzeko, which we thought was going to be his last ever game and goal for Roma, on his move to Chelsea. Prior to kick-off, of course, that move didn't happen. He was in the squad. Now, Roma are now 7 games without a win. Pressure is on Eusebio Di Francesco. Now, in this game, I've got to say, the Giallorossi looked flat. And for years, remember when Sampdoria couldn't win at the Stadio Olimpico, whether it was against Roma or Lazio. We saw a game in the masterclass of goalkeeping from Sampdoria's Emilio Verviano. Of course, he saved Alessandro Florenzi's penalty in the first half. After that, Roma offered very little. You thought it was going to be 0-0, but then on 86 minutes, Nicola Maru rolling the ball across the penalty box. Zapata nicked in before Juan Jesus to tap home, and by then it was really too late. Roma just didn't seem to get going. All this talk about Dzeko and Palmieri going to Chelsea, it's clearly affected them. Of course, at the end of the game, there was heavy boos aimed at Di Francesco and some of the Roma board and directors, no doubt. But a great win for Sampdoria. Of course, they're in 6th. They are now within 5 points of Roma. Of course, Roma, who are fighting for 4th spot with Lazio, they're losing ground on both Inter and Lazio for that 4th Champions League spot. I'm sure it won't be too long before they're looking over Sampdoria on their shoulders, no doubt. Of course, elsewhere we had Torino, they beat Benevento 3-0. Goals from Iago Falque, Nyang and Obi scoring all before 45 minutes. Benevento's false, what looked like a mini revival, looks as if it's been a false dawn. They stay rooted to the bottom of Serie A. Another win from the Granate since, of course, the ex-Watford coach Walter Mazzari's come in. Now, in the build-up to this game, of course, Belotti was on the bench at least, which gave some of the Granate fans a boost. They'll be glad to see their talisman back, no doubt. In what was otherwise a one-sided game, of course, there was the sending off. Of course, Nyang from Torino getting a bit of a karate kick, you could say, from Vid Belic of Benevento. Of course, Nyang, it was seen aggravating the situation for having shoved him. He got his comeuppance in a kung fu kick, but the Granate took all 3 points. So that's another win for Walter Mazzari's men, whilst Benevento, Serie B can't come soon enough by the looks of it. So, we look at the Serie A table. Napoli then, they still lead the way. They are on 57 points. Juventus are in second, 56, keeping the pressure on Napoli. I'm no doubt when the two meet later on in the season, you've got to say at the moment, the way things are going, that looks as if it's going to be a title decider. Lazio, despite their defeat to AC Milan, they remain third on 46 points. Then in fourth place we have Inter Milan on 44. Roma without a win in 7, they're on 41. Sampdoria now 5th on Roma's heels, they are on 37. AC Milan, they move up to 7th. Atalanta in 8th. Udinese 9th. 10th we have Torino. Fiorentina 11th. Bologna 12th. Chievo, despite their horrendous run they're on, conceding goals and their controversial defeat to Juventus, they're in 13th. Sassuolo 14th, Genoa 15th, and then this is where it gets interesting at the bottom here. Cagliari in 16th, they have 21 points. Crotone 17th, they have 19 points. Spal, of course, they occupy the last of the bottom 3 places on 17 points, despite a draw with Inter Milan. Verona then on second from bottom, despite their thumping win against Fiorentina on 16 points. Benevento still bottom with 7 points. Yeah, it's fair to say it's shaping up at both the top of Serie A and at the bottom. So, like I say, we know the transfer window shuts on Wednesday. We've plenty talking to do. In the next episode, which won't be long after this one, we're going to go through the latest talk, and some of the potential moves are still on, some of them aren't going to happen, some still hang in the balance. So tell us what you think after this weekend of games in Serie A. Was the VAR wrong in the AC Milan game? How could someone not spot the handball? Is it going to be Juventus? Will it be Napoli? Don't forget to comment below, tell us what you think, and don't forget to subscribe, Talk Calcio TV, and we'll see you on our next episode. Arrivederci. Of course, elsewhere we had Torino, they beat Benevento 3-0. Goals from Iago Falque, Nyang and Obi scoring all before 45 minutes. Benevento's false, what looked like a mini revival, looks as if it's been a false dawn. They stay rooted to the bottom of Serie A. Another win from the Granate since, of course, the ex-Watford coach Walter Mazzari's come in. Now, in the build-up to this game, of course, Belotti was on the bench at least, which gave some of the Granate fans a boost. They'll be glad to see their talisman back, no doubt. In what was otherwise a one-sided game, of course, there was the sending off. Of course, Nyang from Torino getting a bit of a karate kick, you could say, from Vid Belic of Benevento. Of course, Nyang, it was seen aggravating the situation for having shoved him. He got his comeuppance in a kung fu kick, but the Granate took all 3 points. So that's another win for Walter Mazzari's men, whilst Benevento, Serie B can't come soon enough by the looks of it. So, we look at the Serie A table. Napoli then, they still lead the way. They are on 57 points. Juventus are in second, 56, keeping the pressure on Napoli. I'm no doubt when the two meet later on in the season, you've got to say at the moment, the way things are going, that looks as if it's going to be a title decider. Lazio, despite their defeat to AC Milan, they remain third on 46 points. Then in fourth place we have Inter Milan on 44. Roma without a win in 7, they're on 41. Sampdoria now 5th on Roma's heels, they are on 37. AC Milan, they move up to 7th. Atalanta in 8th. Udinese 9th. 10th we have Torino. Fiorentina 11th. Bologna 12th. Chievo, despite their horrendous run they're on, conceding goals and their controversial defeat to Juventus, they're in 13th. Sassuolo 14th, Genoa 15th, and then this is where it gets interesting at the bottom here. Cagliari in 16th, they have 21 points. Crotone 17th, they have 19 points. Spal, of course, they occupy the last of the bottom 3 places on 17 points, despite a draw with Inter Milan. Verona then on second from bottom despite their thumping win against Fiorentina on 16 points.